While you're watching this video, somewhere in Shenzhen, an artificial intelligence just made a decision that will change your life. It didn't ask your permission, it doesn't even know you exist. But in 5 years, you'll feel the consequences. And you know what's the scariest part? American politicians found out about this 3 years later than they should have. In 2023, something happened that Western media barely covered. A Chinese company called DeepSeek released a language model that outperformed GPT-4 in quality. Nothing special, you might say. Competition is normal. But here's the detail that made Silicon Valley experts' hair stand on end. This model was trained for just $2 million. OpenAI spent over $100 million on GPT-4. The Chinese did the same thing 50 times cheaper. This isn't just budget savings. It means any average Chinese company can now afford to create its own advanced AI. In America, only giants like Google or Microsoft can do this. See where I'm going with this? China turned artificial intelligence from an elite technology into a mass product. While the US was building Ferraris, China set up Toyota production. And guess who wins the race when there are 1 million Toyotas on the road versus 100 Ferraris? But let's dig deeper, because what's actually happening is far more interesting and terrifying than just a story about cheap algorithms. In March 2024, a major American supermarket chain implemented a warehouse management system based on AI. The developer? A company from Guangzhou. 6 months later, 20 more chains signed contracts with the same company. Why? Because their system is 30% more efficient than American alternatives and costs 3 times less. Now imagine. Every day these algorithms analyze what Americans buy when they buy it, which products run out faster, which promotions work better. This isn't just sales data. This is a map of an entire nation's consumer behavior flowing to China in real time. Now, multiply this story by thousands of companies, security systems, medical platforms, educational apps, even delivery drones, Chinese AI everywhere, and every system collects data. Terabytes of data every day. American data protection laws? They're written for American companies. But when data is processed on servers in Shanghai, these laws become pretty words on paper. Here's a concrete example. In 2023, it came out that a popular fitness app used by 20 million Americans was transmitting geolocation data to its Chinese parent company. Know what's the funniest part? Among the users were military base employees. The app showed their jogging routes right through the territory of classified facilities. Chinese analysts got detailed maps of American military bases simply because soldiers wanted to count calories. And this isn't the end of the story. This is just the beginning, because what comes next is truly interesting. If you're finding this eye-opening, hit that subscribe button. This rabbit hole goes way deeper than you think. Remember how in the 90s everyone said China was just a big factory for cheap goods, that they only knew how to copy Western technologies? Forget it. That was true 20 years ago. Today, China doesn't copy, it dictates. And here's how it happened. In 2017, China announced it would become the world leader in artificial intelligence by 2030. Western experts laughed. Typical Chinese propaganda, they said. But you know what the difference is between the American and Chinese systems? When an American politician promises to do something in 13 years, it's campaign talk. When the Chinese government sets a goal for 13 years, there's a plan behind it, broken down by quarters with specific numbers and responsible parties. And the plan worked. By 2024, China overtook the US in the number of AI patents. Not by 10%, by 2.5 times. But it's not about the number of patents. It's about what happens with these technologies next. In America, a startup creates a cool development, then spends 5 years looking for investors, then another 3 years fighting with regulators. Then Google buys it and puts it on a shelf so it doesn't create competition for existing products. In China, the path from lab to mass market takes 18 months. The government gives money, removes bureaucratic barriers, and off you go. Take self-driving cars. In San Francisco, Waymo is testing a few hundred cars. Testing has been going on since 2009, 15 years of testing. In the Chinese city of Wuhan, 10,000 autonomous vehicles drive the streets. They transport people, deliver food, move cargo. This isn't testing, this is real working infrastructure. While America is being cautious and holding congressional hearings, China just does it. Now, here's the juicy part. All these autonomous vehicles, all these systems, all these algorithms, they're learning. Every day they collect millions of data points about how the real world works, how people behave, how traffic moves, what situations arise on roads. And this data makes Chinese AI smarter. Not in theory and practice. They have what Americans don't, real experience working at scale. Imagine you're learning to drive. One student sits in a simulator practicing scenarios. Another drives through a real city in rush hour every day. After a year, who will be the better driver? Exactly. Chinese AI takes the test in real conditions every day. American AI is still sitting in the simulator waiting for permission to hit the road. And here's what this led to. Today, right now, Chinese companies control 70% of the global market for facial recognition surveillance cameras, 80% of drones, more than half of all solar panels that collect energy consumption data. This isn't just business. This is the infrastructure of the future, and it speaks Chinese. But there's another level to this game that few people think about, and it truly changes the rules. You know what the digital yuan is? It's not just cryptocurrency. It's a weapon. While Bitcoin and Ethereum play at decentralization, China created a fully state-controlled digital currency and built artificial intelligence into it. Every transaction is analyzed in real time. The system knows who pays whom, when, and for what, and it makes decisions. In 2023, Saudi Arabia started accepting digital yuan for oil. This is the first crack in dollar hegemony. Then the UAE joined. Then several African countries. Why? Because the Chinese system is faster, cheaper, and here's the key word, smarter. Their AI automatically optimizes currency rates, lowers fees, predicts market fluctuations. For developing countries, this is a godsend. For the American dollar, this is the beginning of the end. Now, think about the consequences. If in 10 years half of world trade goes through Chinese digital currency with Chinese AI, who controls the global economy? No longer the U.S. Federal Reserve. A Chinese algorithm that decides which transactions to allow, which to block, which countries to support, and which to strangle with sanctions. And here's a real example that was barely covered in the news. In 2024, several Latin American countries started using a Chinese platform to manage state finances, budget, taxes, social payments, all through an AI-based system. The Chinese provided it almost for free. Charity? No. Investment. Now these countries are tied to Chinese technology as tightly as they were once tied to American loans. But there's a difference. You can refuse a loan. You can't refuse infrastructure that your entire economy runs on. China is playing the long game. They're not trying to win next quarter. They're building a system that in 20 years will make Chinese AI the inevitable choice for the entire world. And while American companies argue with regulators about whether it's ethical to use user data to train models, China has already built an ecosystem where refusing their technology equals economic suicide. Drop a like if this is blowing your mind, because we're about to go even deeper. Here's another detail that will surprise you. Chinese universities graduate 4 times more AI specialists than American ones. And these aren't just programmers. These are people who understand how to integrate artificial intelligence into the real economy, into logistics, medicine, agriculture, energy. While American graduates go work at another startup making a food delivery app with AI recommendations, Chinese specialists implement algorithms in managing entire cities. And this isn't theory. In Hangzhou, an AI-based system manages all city traffic. Traffic lights, public transport, even street cleaning speed. Everything is run by an algorithm. The result? Traffic jams reduced by 40%, accidents by 20%, energy consumption of city infrastructure dropped by 30%. This isn't a pilot project. This is already reality for a 15 million person city. And in America, they're still debating whether to give AI access to traffic light management, because you never know, hackers might break in. See the irony? Americans are so afraid of risks that they're missing the future. The Chinese take risks and get results, and every day this gap grows wider. So what can be done? Can anything still be changed, or are we just watching as the U.S. turns into China's technological colony? Honest answer, there's still time, but very little of it. And the main problem isn't technology. China isn't smarter than America. The problem is the system. In the U.S., innovations are born in startup garages, then spend years breaking through investors, competitors, and regulators. In China, the state, business, and science work like one machine. When Beijing decides AI is a priority, every university, every lab, every company gets resources and a command: do it. America needs to stop playing free market when the opponent is playing state-level chess. We need a national AI strategy with real funding, with concrete goals, with coordination between private sector and government, not committees and hearings action. We need to invest in education and not just programming, but understanding how AI changes economics, politics, society. We need to protect data, truly protect it. If a Chinese company wants to work in the American market, fine, but servers on American territory, algorithms open for inspection, no data transfer abroad. Harsh? Yes. But China has been doing exactly the same thing with Western companies for 20 years. And most importantly, we need speed. China's advantage isn't that they're smarter, they're faster. From idea to implementation takes months, not years. America can change this, but it will require breaking the bureaucratic chains that entangle any innovation. Here's an example of what can work. In 2022, the Biden administration launched a program to create supercomputers for AI research. They gave money, removed restrictions, connected universities and private companies. The result? Within a year, America regained leadership in quantum computing for AI. See? When the system works without breaks, there are results. The problem is there are only a handful of such programs, and we need hundreds. But you know what's the saddest part? Even if the American government wakes up tomorrow and starts acting, most ordinary people won't even know about it. Because the AI race isn't like the space race of the 60s when everyone watched launch broadcasts. This is a quiet war. No explosions, no dramatic news. Just everyday algorithms get a little smarter, data centers a little more powerful, control over data a little stronger. And in 10 years, we'll wake up in a world where all key decisions, from whether you get a loan to what news you see, are made by systems developed on the other side of the planet. If you've made it this far, you're in the top 1% who actually care about this stuff. Subscribe and turn on notifications. You need to see what's coming next. This isn't anti-Chinese rhetoric. I'm not saying China is the enemy. I'm talking about balance of power. When one country controls critical technology, it controls the future. This was true for oil in the 20th century. It will be true for AI in the 21st. So draw your own conclusions. Monitor what technologies you use. Ask who's behind your apps, who processes your data. Pressure politicians. Demand transparency and action. Because this race isn't about abstract geopolitics. It's about your life, your children, the world you'll live in 20 years from now. And if you think this is an exaggeration, remember my example with the fitness app at the beginning of the video. None of those 20 million people thought their morning jog had anything to do with national security. Until it was too late. The time to act is now. While there's still something to save, before you go hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with someone who needs to wake up to what's happening. This isn't just another tech video. This is about the world your kids will inherit. See you in the next one.